How's this booming economy affecting the housing market? Well, Mike's going to walk us through it. And what's going on with the youngest segment of homebuyers? What's the trend? We brought in Executive Vice President Scot Hagen to talk through it with us. That'll be fun. And it wouldn't be a Reasonably Speaking episode if I didn't walk you through some renovation lending. By the way, stick around for a surprise for our military population. All coming up next on Reasonably Speaking. And welcome back to another Reasonably Speaking. Good to see you. I feel like it's been a little while, Mike.
It's always been a little while.
It's been a little while.
It's more than a little while and less than a while. It's somewhere in between.
Hey, look, this show is designed for industry professionals. We want to help you if you're a realtor, you're a loan officer, you're a builder, you're a contractor. You know, get out there and make the most of the real estate market. So we hope you guys come and spend some time with us. Hey, if you want to find me on Facebook, it's at Sean Thompson, the Renovation Guy. You want to find me on Instagram, it's FHA203K. On Twitter, at 203K. And then the podcast where everything collects is All Things Sean Thompson, and you can find it on iTunes and Spotify. You can find Michael Bordinsky at Facebook at Mike Bordinsky. You can find him on Instagram at MikeBordinsky.com. All right, and I think if you just Google Michael Bordinsky, you'll pretty much find that guy.
That's me.
Okay, so spell his name right. Last name?
Bordinsky.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? We thought we'd bring in one of our favorite guys in the industry, and he's going to sit and have a great time with us on this show. This is Scot Hagen, who is a senior vice president here at Caliber Home Loans, and all around a super real estate guy in financing. And we're just happy to have him on the show, and we're happy to work with him.
You know what's good is that Scott he's taught me best practices, and I've been, relatively successful in my career, but this is a guy that that knows his stuff.
You need more success, though. I mean, stop slacking.
Well,
okay? All right.
For some people, maybe.
Slackers.
But
thank you.
We've been trying to get you on this show for many moons, Scott. So thank you for taking the time because
you guys are the it. So I want to be where it's popular.
Okay, it's good to know.
Like a Khloe Kardashian, I follow the.
Is our following that big yet?
I don't think so.
Not quite.
All right, well, maybe now it will be.
Okay.
Soon. So, what would a Reasonably Speaking be without a market update? So we're going to go there first. And I got to tell you, there's a lot that's happened in the last week, let alone since the last time we aired, as it pertains to market. I hear that the U.S. economy is doing pretty well. All right, so Mike, why don't you lead us off with the market?
All right, so the most recent significant event was the jobs report, which was this past Friday. Today's the 6th, so that would have been May 3rd. Okay, so as we're speaking, in terms of timing, couldn't have come at a better time because what we have is what's called the Goldilocks scenario. Okay, you've got an economy that's really, really going strong, and the numbers speak for themselves. Okay, so you've got just an amazing report. You had 263,000 new jobs created. Okay, which was well above estimates. Okay,
you see stories on television now that I've never seen in my lifetime. A kid's graduating from college. She's being interviewed saying, "I've got a job."
Yeah.
Literally, I have my cap, I threw it in the air, and I'm starting my job at XYZ Corporation in 2 weeks. And the list goes on and on. I see that on the news all the time, which is amazing.
So you and I did a little exercise before we started, and we just took a look at 2010 GDP on a scale against the GDP growth that we have today in the U.S., and it's astonishing. If you take a look back over the years, Mike, the graph looks like Mount Everest.
Right, it goes straight up.
I'll put it up for you right now to take a look at. But, take a look at that graph. I mean, that's 18.75% growth since 2013.
And that is sustainable because of all this job growth. Each of these factors are feeding on each other, okay? unemployment rate is 3.6%, the national unemployment rate. It is at a 50-year low. Okay.
In relative terms, it's zero.
That's right.
In relative terms, that's unprecedented.
It's unprecedented.
There's 7 million jobs that people can get, yet are like, I don't want to do that.
Right.
Now, wages have been rising. So wages have been rising. Now, here's an interesting fact. Wages have been rising at the fastest pace in over 10 years. Okay? That
So
helps.
they're good jobs.
That's right. Okay? So the offsetting good news, which is really what's interesting, and I think productivity comes into play and a bunch of other factors that you can chime in with, but inflation is not a factor, okay? And that is where the Goldilocks scenario comes in, because you do not have inflation, which means you do not have rising interest rates that are going along with an economy that's chugging on almost all cylinders.
Innovations in manufacturing abilities and artificial intelligence are curbing what used to be inflationary because factories had to pay more. Now there's innovation and artificial intelligence that are taking place of what used to cause inflation. So it's this.
So this is
amazing paradigm.
Correct,
Yeah.
and it's the best of both worlds. That's why I call it Goldilocks. Economy is hot, but not too hot, not too cold. It's just right, and everybody's going to come out a winner. And we are in a scenario where, and we can, we could pivot over to it about the home buying process, but why not buy when rates are low?
And I think that's where we want to go with this. I really want to tie this back to what it means, to you guys as real estate professionals or peripheral anchors to the real estate business. I want to really circle this back to what it means to you. And what I just heard was it means people have jobs, people spend money, industries that we have yet to really understand its power and impact, like home improvement industry or the technology industry as it relates to real estate, are all about to do some amazing things. And it's all on the heels of the U.S. economy.
Yeah.
It's all on the heels of the U.S. economy. Thanks, Mike, for the update. And I want to go to, because Scott, I definitely wanted to bring you on and maybe talk about, I love your perspective on housing trends when we do get into it, and we'll chat for a long time on this, but I wanted to get your perspective and our audience to get your perspective on the housing trend uniquely to maybe the younger buying audience.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's interesting. As we have seen, we measure the size of the industry as the amount of mortgages that are issued, right? So we call that the mortgage-backed securities market. It's been, we thought, in a $2 trillion to $2.2 to potentially $2.4 trillion range, but it actually leveled off and went down a little bit. So we had to go backwards in time to figure out why. And what we thought 2-3 years ago when we saw a lot of permits being issued is we thought that those permits would eventually become housing stock, because candidly we were used to that happening.
Right, which would translate into a higher home ownership rate nationally.
So when that didn't happen and the mortgage-backed securities market just kind of hovered, at my level, at levels above me, we would go to National Builders Association conferences, get into some pretty cool meetings, and we learned that a lot of the builders were building apartment buildings. And I don't want to use the word preying upon, but they were playing to an audience of people that, in my opinion, don't have as sophisticated of a knowledge of wealth building that perhaps we do, right? Or perhaps our real estate partners and professionals do. So it was shocking to me that they were building so many apartment buildings, and as you can imagine, the millennial wants to have an apartment building that has a gym, it's got a doorman, it's got 24-hour service, it has Starbucks downstairs and a burger down next to it, and that's what's important to them for now. And I don't think that they've been educated enough to understand what that means over a 5-year period to their wealth.
I mean, realistically speaking, we see them on mortgage applications when we take them. It's not uncommon to see a $3,000, $3,500 rent from a 20-something.
Yeah.
Think about that. $3,500 a month in rent, and you're in your 20s. Maybe it's a couple that's kind of, shacked up together, and they're paying $3,500 a month in rent. That's a big number.
Yeah.
Yeah, and where do you start, thinking as a young couple, or as a single person, male or female? Where do you start thinking about where the home ownership line starts to make real economic sense? Because you're going to go through numbers that are going to show, as soon as you start that process, it's going to make financial sense. Once you get past the transitory nature of employment, when I say that, maybe they're going from job to job, trying to better themselves, and they're fearful of making a commitment that will keep them in one location for too long, and maybe rental is a better idea for them because they don't know where they're going to be next year. I get that. But at some point, you're just spitting your money out.
Having a place to hang your hat is one thing, but once you get to the point where you need to actually start building wealth, walk us through the numbers of what you can do versus what some of our younger audiences are doing.
So we'll have some fun with it. So let's say Mike and I are the same age and we're friends. Right. And we both have the same situation, new in our jobs, working our tails off to get ahead, a lack of stability, right? So there's a little bit of risk and gamble that goes in what we're both going to decide to do. But our goal is to manage through all of the bills that we have in our student loans. We're going to cut down. We're not going to eat out as much. We're going to go to less concerts, and we're going to save $15,000, right? Ready? Do that? High five?
I'm in.
Okay. So Michael saves $15,000. I save $15,000.
That requires a lot less Starbucks coffee because you can have a little pod for a lot less in your own house.
I won't even get into that.
Okay.
But yeah, because it's $7 to get a coffee at Starbucks, and it drives me crazy when I see my own son do it.
Take $7 times 5 days a week minimum.
Right.
Times how many times a day?
Yeah,
times how many weeks?
It's not hard. But let's just stick with the $15,000 point, right? So
a little had too much coffee today.
Your inner Susie Orman was coming out.
There you go.
So I take my $15,000 and I use that to cover the down payment and the closing costs on a $300,000 home. You take your $15,000 and you put it in the bank, right?
Okay.
And I'm definitely doing a little bit more of a risky move because I'm saying I'm going to make this my home, and if my job changes or I have to commute, I will be making a drive, and you won't, right? You'll walk out. Fast forward 5 years though, and in 5 years' time, I don't know what your $15,000 turns into. I'm just thinking.
Well, I'm going to put most of it because I need to keep it liquid in a hopefully if I can get lucky, put it in a high yield money market at 2%. If I'm lucky.
So maybe you can edit the math on it, but does your $15,000 turn into $17,000 in
if I'm lucky
5 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's say 17.
So here's what happens to me, because I'm gonna take the advice of real estate professionals that I've talked to, and I'm gonna put my $15,000 as a down payment on a $300,000 house. That's gonna make my rent the same as your $1,700 that you're paying for your apartment. But in the 5 years that I own the home, I'm gonna benefit from what's called amortization. So every mortgage payment that I make, a little bit is being taken off of the principal balance, or
So you're growing equity.
being put into my pocket. After 5 years, it's $23,000.
Okay.
Right. So now you have 16,000.
17.
I got 38,000. Now, there's another thing called leverage depreciation, which a lot of people forget about. So I'm not going to predict which direction the market is going to go as far as housing goes.
Take a conservative estimate.
Housing prices go up and they go down over a 30, 40, 50-year period. The average is 2%.
Okay.
But the 2% gain is on my $300,000 house.
Right, not on my $15,000.
Not on the $15,000 that you have in the bank. So if I take that over a 5-year period, I actually wind up with $31,000 that I gain in leverage depreciation, right? So now I've got 31, I've got 38 from amortization. And then we think about, I'm young, maybe I don't have kids yet, I watch HGTV, this is one of the reasons why I like your guys' show. And I'm willing, it's not so much to do the work, I'm willing to be inconvenienced. And I can, because I'm maybe newly married, my children aren't running the house, I don't have kids yet, and I can allow for a contractor to come in and make a mess and make noise. So what happens if I find a house that is undervalued by, I don't know, you guys do this.
25,000?
25,000.
Okay.
Right. So if it's $25,000, which is really an inconvenience because I've got to have somebody come in, remove the carpets, sand some stuff down, maybe put in a new kitchen, but nothing crazy. If I had that $25,000 to the leverage depreciation and the amortization, I'm almost at $100,000. And where are you again?
I'm still about 17,000.
So 5 years from now, you're going to call me or Facebook me or Instagram and be like, "Where'd you get $100,000 for the down payment on that big house, dude? Would your parents help you out?" And I'm going to be like, "No, Mike, I just kind of bought a place 5 years ago, put a little elbow grease into it, kind of bought a little smarter, and what'd you do with your $15,000?"
I bought a bad stock. I bought a penny stock.
Yeah, I mean, you lived above a Starbucks.
Starbucks.
In the
But I
rental,
did get a lot of coffee.
And I'm not, no offense to the builders. If I were a builder, you got to do the same thing, right? You got to follow the trends for your product. So they're doing what they should be doing. But I don't think that generation has looked at those three components very well.
Yeah.
You know, that's where wealth gets built.
Well,
and,
look,
and it's all about education because, who's talking about that right now?
It doesn't seem like anybody.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Where's the
well, you
where's
got to
the talking
remember,
points?
you got to remember what happened.
That's why we're here.
And thank you. You got to remember what happened here. For a while, 10 years ago, it became somewhat of a taboo to really lay into how much housing appreciation you could experience if you bought X and sold Y.
Oh,
right?
and people said it might double in 2 years,
Yeah.
right? So that's
So it got
point.
weird for us to do that. And as a result, we have the next cohort of buyers coming up not knowing what you just described.
Right.
Yes, because the sting lasted the sting of what happened when the housing market exploded the wrong way, when it went kaput, that sting resonated for a number of years.
And that wasn't
leaving
2% annual gain,
Right.
right? Those were 10 and 12 and 15%
Right.
gains that should never have happened.
Right,
But
and that's what happens when
But
a
there
market
was a while there.
overheats.
There was a while there where we did nothing but talk about the advantages of or your home being a key tool to, I'm not going to say riches, but certainly the later life wealth that you just described, right? And we don't talk about
People
that
write
as much
books
anymore.
about that stuff, like David Bach
Yeah,
and stuff.
he wrote a few of those.
it's just alarming to me that in a short period of time, $100,000 of wealth can be created with you and I making the same payment, both having $15,000.
No, these are parallel routes,
Right,
but
right.
one's going a lot faster than the other,
Right.
in terms of getting ahead and creating wealth.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you what, Scott, thank you. And leave it to you to really put it in a really fun way, for us to dig in, on what it means. I mean, to me, that spelled it out. If I'm, dare I say, or dare I call you a millennial, if that's not what you want to be called, I'm sorry, but that age group, if I just heard what he just said, I'd be rethinking my rental strategy, right? And we talk about this on the show all the time. It's not so transient as we were made to believe. It's not that younger audiences are renting because they think they need to stay mobile, right? More are looking for suburbs and picket fences and houses with real bedrooms and real bathrooms to be in so they can raise children, right? So we're coming back to that traditional idea of not living near the corner store, actually getting a house, and what has to be lockstep with that idea is what you just talked about, and that's the appreciation and the collection of wealth through home ownership.
And that's the talking points that we're sharing with you, our audience, and it's really meant to be shared with everyone. If you're an agent looking, and you have a client, these types of talking points are going to be extremely helpful to giving people a better sense of understanding, why they should be doing what they should.
Well, be honest with them, right? So in 5 years, if I told you can have $100,000 instead of $15,000, there's a price to pay for that, right? Because you might be living in a small apartment in Hoboken, which has cool restaurants and fast access to New York City, and I might have bought a $300,000 starter condo 30 minutes away on a train line.
Yeah.
So I have to recognize that extra commuting time, while I can pick up some screen time and watch a show that I download on Netflix, right? You can always figure out something to do. It to me is worth it because I want $100,000 5 years from now. But you know what? To each his own. If some people don't want that, then.
But Scott, if I'm a real estate agent, I want more business, All right, I'm going to grab the scroll bar on the bottom of YouTube or wherever I'm watching this video, and I'm going to scroll it right back to the start of your conversation, and I'm going to memorize that. And I'm going to be able to help my buyers understand why they need to get in the game and potentially why they need to get in the game now.
And don't monkey with the numbers. I said 2% annual appreciation. We've been seeing 6-7% for the last 4 or 5 years. I said 2.
Yeah, you took a conservative estimate, and it still demonstrates a legitimate creation of wealth.
Right.
Hey, so I want to pick up on. Thanks again, Scott, Mike. That was actually pretty good. I want to pick up on something you said, and that was sort of the home improvement angle, right? I'm not going to say who one of the top lenders are, but they send me emails all the time, and they talk about millennials, if you will, buying renovation projects with their credit cards, even though they're homeowners, and they recognize how important it is to make sure that you finance those things right. Getting stuck in credit card debt because of renovation is not a really good thing. But what's the solution to that is renovation lending. So this particular lender didn't really talk about their reno. They just said you can get a home equity or a cash out refinance. But they made a big deal in pointing out that if you're going to get involved with home improvement, and a lot of people are right now, it's really big business, all right, that you make sure you finance it right. What's financing it right? The most affordable way to do that is to put it into your 30-year fixed mortgage and leverage it like Scott said. You put down as little as you can when you buy the house, and you get the reno included. All right, so having said that, on the heels of that, I definitely wanted to give about 30 seconds and introduce Caliber Home Loans VA Renovation Loan. So we really wanted to go out of our way and give our vets an opportunity with zero down to get money to renovate the house when they buy it on top of the purchase price against the after improved value. All right, so if you don't know about that, it's new to the market here with Caliber Home Loans, and it's our VA renovation loan for vets with zero down. Get as much as $25,000 in repairs added to the house. That's a big deal. So thanks, guys, for spending a little time with us on Reasonably Speaking. Scott, you killed it, man. It was good spending time with you.
We got to get him back another time in the next couple of years. We definitely
New booking. You talk to my booking agent.
In the next, my people talk to your people. And we'll get to this, folks. Reasonably Speaking is here for you as the industry professional. Check in, have some good time with us. You know what? You know where to find us. Look down on the bottom on scroll. I'll put all our stuff there.
Right down there.
Yeah, right down there. That's where you look. All right. We'll see you guys next time.
Take care.